Okay. Testing, testing. What's that noise? Testing, testing. What the hell? What's that noise? Oh, shit. What the hell was that? I ain't got no mic. Testing, testing. What's going on? Why does it sound so spooky? What's this? Default. What the hell? Yeah, it's lucky. I can hear that there's like a hissing sound on the mic. I don't know where that's coming from. This laptop is cooked. Trying to think, do I have a spare mic somewhere? It's a joke. Let's see if I can use my Bluetooth. See if this works. It's a joke thing, man. So lucky, I'm trying to switch up the mic, see if I can fix up this audio. Don't know where this buzzing is coming from. See if I can use it. Headset there, see if that works. Alright, let me test the sound now. For fuck's sake, man. Let me test the sound now. It's a little bit better, isn't it? Alright. Is the sound better, Arkham? Does it stop the hissing? Oh, I don't know if this okay, good. So lucky about that. I don't know what the hell is up with this laptop. It's moving spooky still. Alright, okay. Right, Shalom, Shalom. First I say Kal Halal Yahweh Shem Yahushai Waharakal Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Honors to you brothers out there in the highways and the byways, teaching this word in all sincerity and in truth. Right, so basically I want to respond to this video here. Let me get this video up. Where we at? Right. By a guy named Stefan Antonioni, and it's entitled Society Lied to Us. We're all wage slaves and I can prove it. And I thought we could go through this video. Is got a very good perspective on what's actually happening, man. This is captivity, man. We live in a system of oppression. And these devils are even oppressing their own people. It's crazy. All right. You know, this system is very demonic, is very oppressive, wicked, and evil, and that's why the people are mourning. All right, and so we're gonna go through this video and some other information, and it's really coming off the back of another video that I did. That if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's on my channel. It's called Snap EBT, capitalism versus socialism. There is another way. All right, and you know, pretty much in this video, I critique, you know, the two sides of the economic theory that Esau pushes out there for the people to consume. So you got the left lean towards socialism and the right swear by capitalism, and then you also got other, you know, you got communism and all these different things, and everyone thinks their way is the right way, but ultimately there is a way which is in the scripture which doesn't represent either of those things. And all these economic systems, right, will always lead to oppression because Esau Edom is at the head of it. And you know, his spirit ain't right. His spirit is corrupt. You know, he's wicked. So anything he formulates is ultimately gonna come to one end, which is wickedness and oppression. That's why we don't lean on Esau. You know, we don't seek unto Egypt, because Egypt ain't got nothing good for us. You know, the Bible says, let's get John 10 and 10. I hope the sound is still holding up properly. If anything happens with the sound, someone just drop me a message. I can see it in the chat. John 10 and 10 says the thief, which is what Esau is. He's a thief, right? He steals. He takes more than his share. He steals people's inheritance. He steals your labor, right? His whole MO is about oppression. It's about owning everything. It's about selfishness. It's about sadism, right? He doesn't believe in anyone else having an inheritance but him. And ultimately, that's what the New World Order is all about. It's about a few Edomites owning and controlling all of the resources and in the earth, when the Bible tells you that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. All right, no, he wants the earth to belong to him. All right, so the thief cometh not but to steal and to kill. All right, because Esau is more than willing to kill to get what he wants. He's the original Nigger. He's the original Gangster. All right. When it comes to killing people to get what you want, Esau has done perfected that. All right. It says, but for to steal and to kill and to destroy, I am come that they might have life. And the day is ultimately beginning with the Israelites, beginning with the elect, that we may have life. Because this society, this world doesn't offer us life. It offers us a slow death. Right? This world is oppression. All right, oppression and death. That's the only thing Esau has to offer. So any of you Jakes that's getting caught up in Esau's philosophies and call yourself you know, you're left or you're right, and you're buying into Esau's politics and his politicians and all this BS, you're out of line. All right, Yahweh Shai is the way. He's the only way for us to have life in this earth. All right, and come that they might have life and they might have it more abundantly. All right, and there is a way for us to have abundantly, but under this system, it's not set up for us to have abundance. This system is ultimately a manifestation of the curses. You know, it's set up for us to suffer. Hey, shalom, right? And we have been suffering in this system. And sometimes you, Jake, get a little thing and you think it's some great thing, because we don't know how we really should have it. We don't understand how mainly because we don't understand the scriptures. We don't understand how life should actually be. We've never lived under a righteous system. which is what the scriptures has. So in this video, I go into it, and I use the chat GPT to contrast capitalism and socialism, Esau's economic systems, with the biblical system of economics. All right. And the whole principle and the spirit behind the biblical economics is way different. The outcomes are different. The outcomes are more equal. Now, does that mean everybody is equal? No. But what it means is you're not going to get extremes inequality, which is oppression. And that's pretty much the world that we live in. You have massive extremes that exist in this world. You got the super rich, and you pretty much got everybody else. And some people might have a little bit more than the others, so they think they're doing really well. But compared to the elites, you ain't nowhere. This is a very oppressive system that we're living under. Extremely oppressive. And that's why more and more the people are mourning. All right. This is Proverbs 29:2. It says, when the righteous are in authority, right? And what represents the righteous, man? The righteous represents those who are in the spirit of Yahweh Shai, the spirit of the Lord. The righteous are guided through the spirit, which means they uphold and administer the word of the Heavenly Father. And the Bible contains the economic policy. All right. Something that Esau's not going to talk about. You're gonna get they're talking about there's a Christian revival in America. Yeah, but when they get up on the podium to discuss politics, they never discuss politics coming out of the scriptures. Okay, they never discuss politics coming out of the scriptures. They never bring out no principles from the scriptures, no laws. They're not guided by the scriptures. All right, so they're frauds. All right, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. When you establish a biblical system of rulership, a biblical system of uh, of um, of economics, of social life, ultimately the people are going to rejoice, because it's going to lead to what? Life and justice. It says, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. And that's what you're seeing. And even their own people are mourning now, which is what we're going to get into. You know, these Edomites are upset because the boomer generation were blessed with the American dream. They were given a little bit more than everyone else. They didn't have as much as the elites, but they were given a little bit more. So they considered themselves to be middle class. But now, the generations after that, Esau's taken that away. And that's why they're so angry and upset. And they're trying to blame Jake. They're trying to blame Islam. They're trying to blame immigrants. They're trying to blame people on EBT. When ultimately the ones to blame for the Shalom Mahab, the ones to blame is Esau himself. It's you. It's because you're the devil that the Bible speaks of. All right. But when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. And you see that. The people are really mourning. All right. Because things not right. All right. So check this video out if you haven't. Snap EBT, capitalism versus socialism. And in that video I'll go into a lot of the details of the biblical economic system. All right. So where we at? Let's see where we can go. All right, let's just kick it off with the video, because we're going to talk about the baby boomers, which is the most blessed Edomite generation there's ever been, the baby boomers. And that was it. That was it was that generation, and then it was over. You know, and that plays into a lot of what we see happening today, because they're Esau, especially Trump, is trying to sell these people that the golden generation, the boomers, and what they enjoyed is going to come back if they get rid of Jake, if they get rid of the immigrants, If they if they reestablish a system of white supremacy, then all the good times are going to come back, which is not what's going to happen. So let's play this, and we'll stop, pull scriptures, whatever we got to do.
A working or lower class, a middle class, and an upper class. Well, today I would like to make a case that. So I'd like to talk to you about a little bit of a radical idea today, and that radical idea is that the middle class does not really exist. When we typically think of a social hierarchy, most of us think of it this way. We might have been shown this social pyramid in school, or you might have seen it when you were growing up, and basically we imagine society to have these nice clean divisions between a working or lower class, a middle class, and an upper class. Well, today I would like to make a case that our social hierarchy actually looks a lot more like this. You have a teeny tiny sliver of the population that is what I would call the elite class. You have a slightly bigger but still very teeny tiny sliver of the population, which I would call the true middle class. And then you have a gigantic portion encompassing pretty much everybody that I call the true working class. Now, what do I mean by working class? Because usually when you hear the term working class, you might think of, okay, a blue collar worker perhaps, or a lower income worker perhaps. It's typically the social norm of what we call the working class. I have a little bit of a different definition for it. What I call the working class is just simply anyone who must sell their labor to survive. In other words, anyone who must work. That is the working class. It's pretty straightforward, right? But this means that it encompasses everyone from burger flippers to bankers, right? From lawyers, doctors to baristas. It's anybody who has to go to work on Monday morning. Now, obviously, this is a little bit of a crazy thing to say, right?
Yeah, that's the wage slaves, which is what we are. All right, we have to go to work and give up our labor to produce for someone else in order to make enough money to provide food and shelter for ourselves. That is the system that we live in. And when they brought in this system where everybody's a wage slave, because wage slaves have always existed, even in hardcore slavery, wage slaves existed. In fact, you had actual slaves who had skills. They would work for other plantations, earn a wage, and a portion of their wage would be owed to their owner, which is pretty much the system that we have now. You you work, and a portion of your what you work for goes to your owner, which is the government. They own you. So when you when you go to work, you owe them portion of your labor. All right. But ultimately, you had the slaves on the plantations, and they so-called freed the slaves, right? That's what they say. That's what Esau's running around here trying to get a hand clap for, that he freed the slaves. But the issue is that you free a slave and you don't give them the means to be self-sufficient, to be independent, and they remain dependent on you, right? Then they're not really free, right? They're not free. They have to go back on the same plantations in order to work. It's just the only difference now is they get paid, and then they take that pay to get the things that they were getting for free before, because they were completely owned as chattel slaves. So whereas before you were provided with food and shelter, now you get paid and then you go and get the food and the shelter. All right. But pretty much we're just wage slaves, man. And in the scriptures, we wouldn't be reduced to being wage slaves, because all Israelites were part of a familial business, a familial inheritance, where you would have your own land and your own resources, where you could work for yourself and be um, independent. But we don't have that because we don't own anything. We don't have our own land and our own inheritances. We're on the Esau system. Esau pretty much owns and controls everything. And so we have to go into his system in order to provide for ourselves, right? Slaves. This is what it is. I have to go to work tomorrow in order to get money to pay for a house on land that I don't own. All right, and I don't have no other choice. There is no other choice. Now you might say start your own business, but again, you're not starting your own business from a position where you have your own production, that you have your own land and resources. You don't. All right.
It's a little bit of a radical idea because typically we don't think of bankers and baristas or burger flippers in the same social class. And I'm sure I might upset some people by saying that. So let me unpack this a little bit more so you can understand where I'm coming from here. If we imagine, two people, let's say, let's imagine a banker and let's imagine a burger flipper, which I have drawn for you beautifully here. In the burger flipper's world, the kinds of choices available to them in life are, of course, different than someone who's a banker. Because, let's say the burger.
Let me just get this precept off the board. Baruch 3:8. It says, "Behold, we are yet this day." I was thinking about the scripture before we started. Behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse, and to be subject to payments according to all the iniquities of our fathers, which departed from our Lord our God. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That is, I was thinking about the scripture before we even started the live, man. Who's this? This guy here, bro. Don't worry, you're gonna get zapped anyway. Expeditiously.
Burger flipper is roughly making minimum wage and the banker is making multiple six figures. Okay, so in that kind of world, the burger flipper might drive a Honda. They might shop for groceries at somewhere like No Frills, which is a more budget-oriented grocery store in the country I live, at least, and they might live in a simple apartment. Whereas the banker might drive a BMW, might drive a luxury car. They might shop at Whole Foods for their groceries, and they might live in a beautiful 4, 5, 6 bedroom home. Who knows? So of course they have these different kinds of choices available to them in life. But the one choice that they share, the one choice that they both don't get to make, is that they both have to trade the use of their bodies and or their minds. They have to trade the use of them. They have to sell the use of them. They have to rent the use of them for the majority of their day in exchange for resources that they're going to use to try and survive in the minority of their day, right? And so this is just a fancy way of essentially saying it's like, yes, those people get to make different choices because of the money they have in terms of where they're going to live, what they're going to buy, that type of thing. But the one choice they don't get to make is whether or not they go to work on Monday morning. And this, as we will see, is very significant that they both share this. And that's because, well, most of us, when we think of work, it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. We just think, okay, I have to work because I have to contribute something to society, right? I have to contribute my labor to society to keep the world turning. And when I contribute my labor to society, I'm going to receive money in return. We can think of this money as just society bucks or society credits, right? Pays us back. And then we use these society credits to then trade for the things that we want and need in our life. That's how most of us think about work. It's pretty straightforward. But I would suggest to you that there's a lot more going on here. And I created this idea that I call the work iceberg to illustrate this. Because what I just described about work just being this thing where we need to contribute to it and we get money back and then we use the money to buy things we want and need, that's kind of just the tip of the iceberg, right? Because there's all this stuff below the surface that we don't really talk about as much, and we kind of just take it for granted for some reason that this is the way work works. But what's really under the surface of this iceberg is the fact that to work, especially to be employed by someone else, especially in large corporate environments, let's say, means giving up control of all of these really essential parts of your being, such as when you must wake up, how you must dress, where you must be, what you must do, who you must speak to, how you must speak to them, what cultures and beliefs you have to conform to, when and for how long you can take breaks, and when you can stop and go home for the day. In other words, the bottom of this iceberg illustrates the fact that work controls the vast majority of your life, because all this stuff that work controls about you, well, it controls that about you for the majority of your day, the majority of the days of the week, across the majority of your adult life. And this control doesn't only apply to burger flippers.
This is hell.
It also applies to bankers. That's why I describe all of these people who are subject to this kind of control as the working class. And if you want to know, sorry, my baby's just yelling. You might hear him in the background a little bit.
Right, let me see. The elder posted, a wage slave is someone who must work for an income, often under poor conditions or for low pay, with few opportunities for advancement, leading to a feeling of being trapped in a system of exploitation that is compared metaphorically to chattel slavery.
If you want to know more about, thinking and seeing work and under this different light, I've actually been putting together a playlist called How Work Works. So if this is interesting to you, you might consider checking that out. So that's why I think of this pyramid as really looking like this, right? As having a huge amount of people subject to being in the working class because they have no choice but to sell their labor to survive, and they have to subject themselves to this form of control, basically. Now, you might still be objecting to this, right? Because you still might be kind of like hanging on to the idea. It's like, well, yeah, okay, they do both have to go into work on Monday, but the work they do has very different reward sets for each of those people. And that might mean that the burger flipper might be subject to a lot more control than the banker. Well, let's continue to unpack this a little bit further, and let's actually look at some numbers here. Let's put some numbers on the board. So by my estimation, the elite class is actually composed of just 0.1% of the population. And that's because it's basically this group of just over 200,000 people who have a net worth over $30 million. As you can hear, my little baby boy's getting very riled up about this. He's very riled up about the elite class. So,
and one thing you notice is that when you actually look at the numbers, it's crazy. You look at the numbers, and if you were to ask most people about these numbers beforehand, you probably would get a different sense. They will have a different sense. And another thing is the media, because people are always watching Instagram and they're always looking at celebrities, right? They have an inflated view of how many, true middle class or elite people there actually is. The 98.9% of people are down bad, and that's a lot of people, and it's getting worse. It's getting worse by the second. But social media lies. You think, if you watch social media, you think everyone else is like flipping living it up to the maximum, and it's just you that's just down bad. No.
So the cutoff to be in the elite class is $30 million net worth in excessive. Then we have the true middle class, which makes up just about 1% of the population of about 2.4 million people. And these are people who have a net worth between $5 million and $30 million. Everyone else falls in the working class, which is about 99% of the population. And that's going to be anyone who has a net worth below $5 million, essentially. And the vast majority of people have a net worth below $1 million in this class, right? As you can see the way it breaks down. Now, the one area, and I've put a little asterisk there for this reason, the one area you might be kind of looking at and being like, that part doesn't make sense, is the fact that I have about 22 million people with a net worth between 1 million and 5 million in the working class. Because you might think to yourself, how can someone with a net worth of let's say $3 million really be a member of the working class? That doesn't add up, Steve. I'm confused there. Shouldn't they maybe be in the middle class? And it's like, you could make an argument in that sense. I'm going to make an argument in the other sense as we continue to go on here and look at even more numbers. But it's like, yeah, it's a valid point to make. And so if I just granted that to you, well, it's like we'll probably move about another 9% of the population to the middle class. So your true middle class is maybe about 10% of the population. I mean, it doesn't really change things that much, right? It's like you still have, a working class of 90% of the population who's subject.
And where do you think the majority of Jake finds themselves in this pyramid? And that's the curses. In fact, let's get some of these curses up. The 99.9% of Jake find themselves at the bottom of that pyramid, man. And that's due to the curses. We're serving captivity. And that's not gonna change until the Lord delivers us out of this kingdom, because we're not supposed to be living like that. Just down bad. All right, let me get from 47. Right, Deuteronomy 28 and 47. It says, because, in fact, you know what, man? Let me start from. This is all good stuff, man. Right, so Deuteronomy 28 and 29, right? It says, and thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. All right, we're not a prosperous people. All right, we don't prosper in Esau society. Right, Jake doesn't own and control one industry, period. Whether it's in America, whether it's in Britain, whether it doesn't matter where we are, we don't own and control no industries. Right? Name the industry that Jake owns and controls. We don't. Right? Now you might want to say the sports industry, but we don't own and control the sports industry. Jake is not the one bringing in most of the revenue from the sports industry. Right? Jake doesn't own the companies that are making money out of the punters. Jake is the athletes, and the athletes get paid. But if you look at the revenues of these companies and the adjacent companies, why do you think Nike can pay an athlete millions of dollars to promote their shoe? because they're making billions. And then the way the system is set up is that these athletes, they're going to lose all that money anyway. The system is set up, right, that most of these athletes are going to go broke, right? Whether it's through gambling, whether it's through Esau and his stupid ass financial advisors that they send in to get Jake to invest their money and get it stolen, right? These Jakes in the entertainment industry and in the sports industry, it's well known that they don't stay rich. They go up and then they go down. Some of them might stay up, but most of them they through. All right, we don't own and control anything in the society, and you can point towards Black Wall Street and all this shit. Well, what happened to Black Wall Street? Esau came and did what he had to do, and we're gonna get into the whole boomer generation, that golden generation of prosperity. Esau made sure that Jake didn't benefit from that as much as Esau did, right? Redlining and all these different things. They made sure they put things into the system to make sure that Jake didn't benefit from that boomer generation the same way these Edomites benefited. All right, and that's a manifestation of the curses, right? The elder posted Haggai 1:6. Ye have sown much and bring in little. Ye eat, but ye are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, but there is none warm. And he that earneth wages earneth. It's supposed to say after that, and then put it into a bag of holes. Yeah, Jake. Listen, man, Jake is struggling, man, and even the Jakes that try and do well, it's still hard, man, and it's very easy to even fall off from that position because you ain't surrounded by a bunch of other Jake that can help you if you fall into a bad way. You're on your own. All right. Most Jakes that's doing well, they're not surrounded by family that's doing well. They're the one that made it. And that's another thing that brings down these Jakes. Like you get these Jakes in the in the sports, right? Like a big example is these Latin tribe dons that become footballers and they come to Europe and they get the big bucks playing football, but they come from the favela, so they got a whole bunch of family that they support. So then when you really break it down, by the end of their careers, they ain't really got a lot of money left because they were giving a lot of money to their families because they were expected to take care of like their whole wider family, which is nothing wrong with that. But then if you have a Edomite who comes from affluence who did the same thing, he wouldn't have to give his mom and his dad and his uncle and his cousin and and all of it. He wouldn't have to be giving them money because they got money too. And then so when he spends all this money and he's down bad now, the same people ain't gonna be there to help him because they're still, they ain't really done nothing for themselves. So it gets like that, man. It's the curses. All right. It says, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed. All right. This is all we're gonna get out of this system is oppression. I don't care if you think if it's the Democratic Party or if the Republican Party or if you're in the UK, could be Labour. Because Jake in the UK, they love Labour, boy. Labour. Yeah, man, Labour. All that Labour talk. Labour don't care about you. It doesn't matter whether it's Labour. Don't matter if it's the Conservatives. Don't matter if it's the liberal Democrats. Could have been Reform. Now you got a bunch of Jakes. They're right wingers now. They think they've found the light. Oh, we're right wing. Bro, the right wing ain't gonna do nothing for you. The scripture says, thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore. And spoiled means that what you earn, the goods that you rightfully should have, will be taken away from you. And you will be left with the remnant. All right. And no man shall save thee. No one ain't gonna come and save us out of this hell that we're living in. It's only the Most High that can undo this thing. It's just going to take divine intervention through Yahweh Shai. Okay? This system is a system of oppression. All right? Let me skip that. I want to get straight to some points here. There we go. Right, Deuteronomy 20 and 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. All right, these heathens always seem to have the upper hand. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. So we're always operating from a position of weakness. When you're having to borrow, right, from another people too, not favorably. Like these elites, they borrow, but they borrow favorably. Like Mark Zuckerberg and them, man, they borrow money, yeah, favorably with good interest rates. Shit, they don't even have to pay back. You go borrow, they'll slap a 39.9% APR on that sucker. You know what I'm saying? You go borrow to start a business, bro. Them sharks are gonna make sure they take you for everything you have. That's what the music industry is. The music industry is Jake having to borrow money to fund their career. And how does that work? When these Jakes have to, that's what the advance is. The advance is a loan. They're borrowing money to fund the studio time, the promotion, the distribution. Now, if Jake had their own money and their own infrastructure, they wouldn't have to do that. But you're coming from a point of weakness. All you got is your lyrics. You 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 don't have the capital behind you to make the thing work. So you're coming from a point of weakness. You need to make it. They don't. They already got money. All right. It says, "He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail." And that's how it goes. Like we don't own and control and have authority over a single area of society. We don't even own and control the streets because the hierarchy of the streets goes back to Edomites. We don't. We're not the head of anything um in this world. And like I said, we're not even the head of sports and entertainment. DP wasn't the head of sports and entertainment. He had Edomites above him. All right, P Diddy, Jay Z, all these guys. And they shall be a sign upon thee they shall be upon thee for a sign and a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So you can't breed this thing out. All right, because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. Because the funny thing is that if we'd have just kept the covenant, the law, statutes, commandments, we would have all things in abundance. But we don't have all things in abundance right now. We're out there in a rat race trying to get abundance. All right. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, Esau, Edom, in particular, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in the want of all things. Okay, we're relying on Esau's system for everything: food, clothing, shelter. The whole infrastructure is Esau's infrastructure, and we rely on it. And that's why the majority of our people are going to take that chip. Because whose system is it? Who owns the infrastructure? We're using the internet right now, right? Who owns and controls that? You get up and I'll get up tomorrow and I need to go buy something. Whose money is it? Who determines whether I can use that money? The bank that you bank with, yeah. Who owns that bank? Who regulates that bank? Right? Your food, where does it come from? Did you farm it? If you live in a city, you're cooked. You can't subsistence farm. You're dependent on a system that you don't own and control, and your family don't own and control. Nobody that loves you no, listen, when you living in your mom's house, at least she loves you, man. So you all right. When you living with people that don't love you, it's peak, yeah. We're in a society where everything that we require, right? Don't care who you are, man, woman, child, you are relying on a system that is run and controlled by people that do not love you. They have no reason to have favor on you in any way, shape, or form. And that's a sad case. At least if we was in our own kingdom, if you fell into a bad way, you'd be relying on your brother. You'd be relying on other Israelites who love you to take care of you and to help you. In this system, you're relying on Satan. Yeah, it's cooked out here. All right, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee, which is what Esau did. He destroyed our people mentally, mentally and physically, man, and economically. And that's where Jake is at today. Um, it wasn't just slavery, man. This is complete and utter destruction of a people. Um, that was the point there. Let's jump back to the let's see what brother's got here. Micah 2 and 10. Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted. It shall destroy you, even with a sore destruction. Yeah, this place, man, it's boy, man, it's hell, man. And the longer you live and your eyes are open, the more you'll see it, man. It's tainted, man. Um, brother put for slavery is but the owning. Oh, this one the hazard circle. For slavery is but the owning of labor and carries with it the care of the laborer, while the European plan led on by England is the capital control of labor by controlling wages. Yeah, the wage slaves, and that's why they after the golden generation they got rid of the unions as much as possible, man. We're gonna get into it, man. Um, Philippians 4 and 11. Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am therewith to be content. Yeah, you gotta learn to be content in this world, or it's gonna drive you crazy. Jeremiah 15 and 5. For who shall have pity on thee, O Jerusalem? Or who shall bemoan thee, or who shall go aside to ask how thou doest? Ain't nobody give a damn, man. Ain't nobody really give a damn about Jake. Like, and Jake don't care about Jake. So we're just cooked all the way through. It's crazy. Job 9 and 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? Yeah. Right, let me jump back to this video. Yeah, so the curses, man. That's why the majority of our people, the 99.9% of us, I'll probably say 99.9% of Jake is in this bottom layer of society, socio-economically. And these are just facts, right? These are facts. Now the problem is you got a lot of Edomites that now are in this area, and that's why they're pissed off. That's why they're so angry, because the Edomites, no Edomite believes that they should be in working class. They believe that they should be in at least in the true middle class. But the elites, they ain't trying to hear that.
To control. And so that, it's somewhat of a change, but it's not really a huge change. But I'm going to argue against that, and I'm going to argue that they should actually belong in the working class. They're about to escape the working class. They're in the process of escaping it for sure. They're at the top end of it, but they're still in the working class. And that's because basically I draw my lines in the hierarchy based off something known as economic independence. And so what we find is that the elite class is actually the members of society who are fully economically independent, right? And what that means is they don't have to rely on anyone or anything outside of themselves to be able to produce or procure what they need to survive. So
right. And that's the elite. They own so many assets, they own so many people that they don't need nothing and no one. They go where they want and do what they want, and they control the government, the laws, the regulations. They live in life on a whole different level. All right.
In ancient times, economic independence meant having your own land, because if you could have your own land, it meant you could grow your own food and you could provide for yourself, right?
There you go. So this is going back to the biblical way of economics. This is why where was it? Oh, I'm trying to think of where it is exactly. Is it in? I'm trying to think of the exact wording. It's not in Joshua. Give me a second. Let me just look it up real quick. Where the scriptures say to the small families, they gave a small. One second. Okay, it's the numbers 33:54. Let's get that. This is why when we were going into the land, right, the Lord made sure that every Israelite, every Israelite received land according to their family. All right, because the system of Israel is not a system of oppression. Now, there's always going to be some people that do better than others, right? However, the system itself is not designed for like one family to own 50% of the land and then everyone else is basically a serf. No, our system of laws means that the land, which is a source of wealth, will always be distributed among the people. Always. All right. That's how our laws were set up to maintain that so that the land didn't fall into landlordism, yeah, feudalism. Our system is not a system of feudalism. Okay. Numbers 33 and 54. And ye shall divide the land by lot for an inheritance among your families, and to the more ye shall give the more inheritance. So if you had a larger family, you would get a larger plot of land. And to the fewer you shall give the less inheritance. Every man's inheritance shall be in the place where his lot falleth, according to the tribes of your fathers ye shall inherit. And then so you add on to that the laws which dictate that if you sold the land would have to come back to you in the year of Jubilee. You understand? The land couldn't be inherited by another tribe. The scriptures say, remove not thy neighbor's landmark. The reason for this is to establish this economic base, right, where a few people cannot completely dominate the masses, which is what this society is like. Yeah, in this society, you got a 0.1% to maybe like a 10% of the population that's completely dominating the other 90%, to the point where the other 90% don't really even own anything. They're just happy to just get a wage so they can get products. Just wage slaves. No, we wouldn't have a society that's just based upon a whole bunch of wage slaves. If you wanted to be a wage slave, it was by choice. You could go work for another Israelite, but that was your choice. You could either work your own land and work with your own family, or you could go work for another family for a wage, but it would be a choice. In this society, it's a necessity because we're slaves. Bro, for Psalms 137, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, yeah, we wept when we remembered Zion. Yeah, man, we had it good. Now we out here just cooked, absolutely cooked, man. But that's what this guy was talking about in you go back in the ancient world. That's how it was. You had to have your own land, which means you had your own means of production, producing for yourself, because you can have cattle, you can have sheep, which is going to give you clothing and things of that nature, and you can farm for food, and then you can trade with other families and so forth, and be independent. All right, nobody can't tell you nothing. Nobody can't force you to work for some bullshit wages that you don't want to work for. the
Today,
the
the
point
equivalent
is that if you did go to work for someone else, they would have to really compensate you. It would have to be really worth your while, because you ain't gonna do that if you can just do your own thing.
of like owning agriculturally producing land for yourself is kind of like owning enough money, enough capital, because enough capital kind of becomes like this farm for yourself, right? If you have X number of $1 million, you invest that, you're going to earn a lot of money from that. It's kind of like your money grows, crops for yourself in a sense, and then you can just use that newly created money.
Yeah, so what he's talking about here is that, so you got a system where a guy can sit there with a net worth of like, let's say he's got a net worth of $1 billion, right? And most of that is invested in stocks and shares and bonds and all that. The interest he's getting every month is like having a farm, because he's not working. He's not going to do no work, and he can literally just live off the interest of his investments and his assets, and still out purchase you for everything. So you're talking about these billionaires, right? The amount of money they earn in the interest on a monthly basis, they could just go and buy like 10 houses every month. And so this is where the inequality just grows all the time.
To buy what you want and need. So the elite class is, of course, fully economically independent because they have a net worth over $30 million, and that's going to be able to cover them. Absolutely. But the unique thing that the elite class also has is they also have the power to command other people. And this is very important because this type of social hierarchy is a dominance and command hierarchy. The elite class is kind of in charge of everybody else. They're in charge of the capital of society, which means they're essentially in charge of allocating that, which means they're in charge of allocating the resources of society, which means they're essentially in charge of everybody. Below them, you have the middle class, and how I kind of classified them is that they are also fully economically independent.
And what it is that they hide all of this through democracy. Democracy is the way that they make the people in the working class feel like they have some kind of power when they actually don't. The elites control the government, but through democracy, they're able to put on an illusion. Yeah, Khan, I'm gonna shoot you the link. Hold on. Democracy is an illusion. Where's this link? Did I post it to myself? One second. I'll share the link to. Actually, let me just post it here.
Independent, right? And that's because they have this net worth between $5 and $30 million. So they're also definitely going to be fully economically independent. But the thing that the middle class does not have is they do not have the power to control other people. They do not have the power to command large amounts of the population. And we'll see why in just a second. And then finally, the working class, the characteristics they have is that they are economically dependent, right? They do not have the power to provide for themselves. They are dependent, which means that they need to access the resources they want through the people who have the power to provide it for them. In other words, they don't have enough money for themselves, so they have to sell their labor to survive because they need the money from the people who have it so that they can get it, and then they can use that money to trade for the things they need and want, right?
Yeah, boy. Hey, Shalom, Yabashim Yoshai Waharakah Kadash Barakatah.
Hey, Shalom, Jaquan, Yahweh, Bashim, Yahushua, Bashim, Yahushua. Can you hear me, brother? Can you hear me? God, all right. Hey, again, Shalom, I want to start off with giving all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh, Bashim, Yahushua, Bashim, Kakodash. Double honor to the apostles and the bishop elders and salutation. Double honor to the apostles and bishop elders of Great Millstone and salutations to you fellow believers. Hey, real quick, me and Jaquan, we was talking about this via WhatsApp maybe like a day or two ago. This topic, and it was a heavy topic because there's a part of this world, there's a part of finance that the average Jake and really like the average Edomite don't really know about and don't understand. They don't understand borrowing. You had mentioned something about borrowing and how these Edomites, especially these so-called wealthy ones, how they earn interest. And you spoke about how when they borrow money, they borrow good, right? There's a such thing as called good debt. There's a such thing as called bad debt. And even the wealthy elite, they buy up bad debt for, to flip it and make money off of it. And so you had mentioned about how these guys, these wealthy men, they earn enough interest if they wanted to, they could buy a house, 10 houses a month, probably more than that. Because when you're worth the so-called billions, I'll give two examples. Elon Musk, they say that he's supposedly worth at one time he was worth like 500 million, and then they were saying like now he's about to be worth $1 trillion, but he don't have that in cash. All of this is the valuation of his companies that he has, and so when he borrows for his daily life, or if he want to buy other things, or if he want to buy businesses, or if he want to buy things on interest, what he does, there's something called private banking. Like your average bank that you go to, JP Morgan, Chase, Northwestern, I believe it's called Northwestern or something like that, or Northern banks in the UK. And so they have a different level of banking. It's called private banking. And when you start dealing that private banking, the banks, they want to court you. right? Different banks, they want to court you to put your portfolio or your something called an arms, which is really called assets under management. They want to get your assets under management so that they can bolster their books, and so they give you the best portions of lending. So when a Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk want $100 million house, that 100 do is or S block, a security backed line of credit, or a portfolio backed line of credit, depending on what they're trying to cop. And so they don't pay interest on that. So like, let's say, what's this guy named Elon Musk, right? His ROI every month, not even just every year. His ROI every month could be in the tens of millions, right? His ROI for the year could be in the billions, multi-billions. Just return on his investments in his portfolio, depending on how it looks. So with a return, so for some people that can understand it, let's say I have $100 million, right? I'll give a great example: $200 million in assets under management in 3 different private banks. My ROI every year is going to be about $14 million every year. So I'm literally making $1 million a month over that. So you make $1 million a month. So what they do is, hey, look, man, I want to take a P block or S block out at a particular rate, right? For like $10 million. Oh, they'll give it to you overnight. Overnight, Elon Musk will have 10 million or even $10 billion in cash assets in his accounts. So he can use that to go buy whatever he want or reinvest. And on top of that, he don't have to pay the principal. All he pays is the interest. And that's where the fun come in at. Because once you start getting into the interest, he might be playing like a 2.5 or maybe even less because he got so much money. That's right. It could be 0, depending on the level of banking he had. Interest. So really, he either don't have to pay nothing. Typically, you have to pay something. So let's say he had to pay a 2.5% interest rate on a $10 million or 10 million or even $10 billion line of credit or portfolio back line of credit. And shit, a year. All you have to pay is like maybe a couple $1 million a year, and that shit can roll over into his death. His kids can inherit that same loan and it never be paid off indefinitely. And his portfolio never changes, meaning that his principal never goes away. See, in this society, we as average citizens, we have to spend our principal every day to make it. Our principal money, you trade your time to get money. That money you cannot invest. You got to pay bills. You got to do all this other shit. Well, they don't do that. They live off of ROI, return of investments. And they do in the ancient world, when we had farms, when we had land, that was our inherited investment. Fruit on the land, animals on the land, we had service on the land. So every month, every year, we could live off our investment, and the principle is the land. It never changes hands. It don't go nowhere. You never sell the land unless you really down bad. Lord made a caveat to that where he had the year of Jubilee, where the land had to come back to you. Nobody couldn't own that land in perpetuity. But Jake started doing that shit to each other. Right? You had kings like Ahab, I believe it was Ahab and Jezebel up in the northern kingdom. They was abusing people, abusing land, taking land because he liked it, just because he liked it. Right? And then really it stemmed from idolatry. All of that shit came from idolatry. Jezebel pushed the spirit of idolatry onto the northern kingdom heavy when she married Ahab. She was a Canaanite. And that's what they did. They did that kind of shit to each other. They abused each other. They took each other for slave service. They get killed. They did all of that shit. Right? And so at the end of the day, these Edomites, they don't get that. They don't bank the way we bank. They don't loan the way we loan, and neither do they borrow the way we borrow. Because they have substance and we don't have that. No matter what you do in this society, high as you can get in this society, you still gonna be a serf or a slave. So I just wanted to bring that out. I ain't mean to take too much time to lock in. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to make that point, brother.
No, that's good. That's good stuff, man. You know, yeah, you had me even thinking it's like they're even at the proximity. They're closest in proximity to when money gets printed. So when the Federal Reserve and all these things, they print money out of thin air, they're normally the first people to get that money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they use it. Like, bro, there's so much these devils do. in the system, and that's how we're trying to explain that the system itself is corrupt. It's wicked. It's oppressive.
Yeah, it's meant to be that way because it's not meant to be. It was even America wasn't meant for the average Edomite. It was only meant for the land owning Edomite man. That's what it was always set up for. It was never set up for us Israelites, and it never will be. You would really have to tear down the whole system and start anew in order for equity and equality to kind of like have a swing at it. So yeah,
People don't understand as well. Like, there's no fixing it. Like
nah,
the disparity is so great, and these Edomites are not gonna want to give up on the power and control that they have.
no,
On top
no,
of
they're
it,
not.
like you see the pyramid,
Yeah,
0.1% of them damn near have everything.
they
They don't
got
want to give
everything.
up well, shit, did I just delete the video?
Just if you got a Apple, just put Command T. It should pop right back up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's dude right here. I watched that whole video. It was good, bro. It was really good. This dude's videos are fucking sharp, on point. He's from
Oh
Canada.
yeah. Oh, is he from
And
Canada?
The
Okay.
equivalent
So
of
yeah,
like owning
he's
agricultural
from Canada.
land for yourself is kind of like owning
like, I'm
enough
trying to
money,
stop this.
enough
My
capital, because
laptop.
enough capital kind
Stop.
of becomes like this farm for yourself, right? If you have X number of $1 million, you invest that, you're going to
Stop.
earn.
There you go. Yeah, Salakia. Yeah, going up.
Yeah, I was saying he's from Canada, and he got tired of being a wage slave, so he wanted to figure out why is it like this, and he found out that the middle class was a mirage. It didn't exist. In fact, that and it's true. It's true because in order to be 1%, 0.1%, right? In this society, you have to have it. Well, in order to get into ultra high net worth, you have to have 30 million or above. I knew that before I watched this video. 30 million or above will put you in an ultra high net worth. When you in a $200 million worth, you're a centimillionaire, right? Yeah, that's what they call you, a centimillionaire. In reality, you should never be able to go broke in life, even with $200 million. You can do it with less, but with $200 million, the money start working for itself. Now it's like they say you want to make money in your sleep. Well, when you bro, the money is really working for you in your sleep because now you got a portfolio and your all your money is in a portfolio based security. And I don't give a damn if the market collapse. It ain't you still gonna be all right because the way it's set up. Like even Elon Musk, they actually do the question on Twitter, like if he had to start over with $1,000, you know what I'm saying? Could you do it? And he basically said like something really catastrophic had to happen, and he said, really, I would just start asking people for money, and that's what he did to get paid. He asked people to get some money. He didn't. Elon Musk is not a business genius. He don't know how businesses really operate to get a plus within that business. He was set up. He's a shield, just like Bill Gates, just like all these other guys. They're shields for bigger companies and bigger groups and bigger families that don't want to be seen. J.P. Morgan was that way. All of them, what's that dude? Vanderbilt was that way. Shit, even the Rockefeller was that way. Even though he's like a offshoot of the Rothschilds, they were all shields for the super elite, and they'll make you rich. It's nothing. We playing a game here. I can make you rich, so you can make my cause go through and do whatever I tell you to do, and that's it. Because when you sit down and talk, and these dudes, that's why these dudes are drug addicts. Peter Thiel, the other guy, Karp, Alan Karp, and the motherfucking Elon Musk. They got these dudes tweaking out on camera. This nigga Alan Karp. He couldn't even sit down because he was so high on meth and speed and cocaine, right? And so these guys, we look at these guys like, wait, these guys ain't smart, but then they'll put some ominous music behind them and they'll put some fake ass quote. How you thinking that Jeff Bezos really made Amazon out of his fucking garage, right? He could tell this nigga ain't never did a hard day's work in his life, let alone stayed up all night trying to make something work. And he ain't do that shit out of his garage, man. His wife just so happened to be set up too. She was a part of a company that made all kinds of fucking money. So no, he didn't do that on his own. Right? He was set up by CIA shield groups, right, to push an agenda to get you just like Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg didn't come up with that idea in Harvard University. He was a shield. That's why he can't tell you how to get rich. He can't tell you how to invest your money properly so that you can make it work for you in your sleep. They're not smart. These people are not intelligent, and neither are they wise.
Yeah,
Salakia, bro.
that's a big business as well. All over the YouTube, guys trying to
Yeah,
teach you how to become a billionaire.
yeah, yeah. You can't be taught. You cannot be taught how to be a billionaire overnight. It has to
Yeah,
be something that you got to be a part of a group. You got to be part of the in crowd, bro.
yeah, you,
Ain't no self-made guys in America, bro.
yeah.
Yeah, but all right, brother, man. I ain't mean to hold you up, man. I got to get
No,
back
no,
to,
no. Listen, it's all
you know what
learning,
I'm
man. We're learning about
saying?
this hell, man, and also contrasting it to how it's supposed to be. You gotta. This is why you gotta go into the scriptures and see that, like, we're talking about the laws on land and inheritance and why it's important. And they've totally
Mhm.
skewed that in the world we live in. They've created a
Mhm.
fabricated world, like you said, with all this financial matrix, confusing garbage. When the world's supposed to be simple,
Yep, it's
but
supposed to
they've
be
turned
something. Well,
it complicated.
that what I was about to say. That's why we need Yahweh Bashim Hawashai Shai. When we talked about this a couple nights ago, brother. With the law, statutes, and commandments, it shows you that it's the key to life. The laws and the commandments of Yahweh Bashim Hawashai Shai is the key. If you do not have the key, you're going to constantly be locked out and in confusion. Right? The laws and commandments bring balance to the earth. It brings balance to man, and it brings balance between us and our God. And we were supposed to be the managers of the earth. Now our workers and everybody else that's supposed to be underneath of us, they ruling over us. They're oppressing us because we've been living without the law. Right? We thought it looked good fucking with the nations and worshiping their idols until you saw the shit you had to do. I corrupted you. You became a murderer. You became a liar. You became an adulterer. You became an idolater. You became everything that the Lord told us not to be. And so now we see the necessity of the law. People, they angry at us today. They don't want us to rule. But when we get in the rulership under Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai and the law, statutes, and commandments are situated on this earth, these people are going to be happy as shit, bro. First of all, everybody going to have land. Every man is going to have land. It can never be taken away. So there go, ergo, no more renting, right? No more paying astronomical amounts of rents and property tax. That shit is done away with, right? A man is not going to be oppressing his own household. You can have as many wives as you want, as long as you can take care of them, do what you got to do, right by and under the law. Ain't nobody going to stop that, right? You can have as many kids as you want to. So ain't going to be no more abortion. Ain't going to be no more killing children, sacrificing children to the over. The earth is going to be teeming with life, as today is not. They telling you that you need death in order to live in a society. Very few people need to live. Very much people need to die. Not in our society. Every man is going to be an agrarian. Every man going to be an agrarian in this society. You're going to learn how to till the land. You're going to learn how to make your own fruits. You're going to learn how to deal with your own animals. Everything is going to be in a righteous balance, bro. And we're going to be able to live. You're going to be able to live, man. You're going to get your ass beat at first, but you're going to be able to live after that, bro. The Most High is merciful, man. So yeah, all these other idols are these idols they oppressive, bro. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
brother,
like
it made a
he
yeah,
mentions that in this video too, that how all these ancient societies is oppressive, man. Rome,
yeah.
Egypt. Yeah, we're gonna get into it, but he even shows that originally in Rome kind of started their society based upon the law of Israel because
Mm,
everyone had land. But then
yeah.
once it became an empire, they got rid of that, and that's how you started getting the oppression and all that shit. And then it
Hmm.
eventually just crumbled. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna get.
All right, my brothers. Hey, may the Lord bless and God and keep each and every last one of us, man. Hey, with that, all praise and glory. Hey, double honor to the apostles. Call Slakia. All praise and glory to you. How about you outside? Double honor to the other apostles and the bishop, elders of great millstone. Salutations to the elect. Hey, keep striving. We almost out of here. Hey, shalom, brothers. I'm gonna tap in. Hey, shalom, shalom.
Hey, Shalom, the word.
Mhm.
Yeah, just to back the brother up, because he was bigging up the word, which is what we're here to do. Proverbs 13 and 13 says, "Whoso despises the word shall be destroyed." See, a lot of people they look down on the word of the Bible. They see as something which is backward and outdated, and no, it's not. All right. If the word of the Heavenly Father, the laws, statutes, and commandments were applied in the earth a lot of the BS that people are dealing with wouldn't be happening right now. This insanely oppressive society that's got everybody protesting and depressed wouldn't be happening right now. All right. It says, but he that feareth the commandment shall be rewarded. The law of the wise is a fountain of life to depart from the snares of death. Right. And ultimately, the way of Esau society is leading to great death, the second death. So that's going to prove, yeah, the way that Esau set up just led to just millions and billions of people just having to be wiped out. You know, it's crazy. It said a good understanding giveth favor, but the way of transgressors is hard. Every prudent man dealeth with knowledge, but a fool layeth open his folly. All right. So let's jump back over to this Donnie here, and
earn a lot of money from that. It's kind of like your money grows, crops for yourself in a sense, and then you can just use that newly created. But the in charge of everybody else. They're in charge of the capital of society. To sell their labor to survive because they need the money from the people who have it so that they can get it, and then they can use that money to trade for the things they need and want, right? So in other words, you have a huge, at least 90% of the population is subject to economic dependence, which forces them into labor, right? And of course, they also do not have the power to command other people, right? Which means they certainly do not have the power to command themselves. And so their lives are largely outside of their control because they have to give up.
You ain't even got the power to in your own household. You ain't even got the power of your woman. You ain't got power over your children. This is a demonic society, man. Absolutely demonic, man. Right? The only thing you got the power to do is to kill yourself chasing dopamine hits with drugs, alcohol, and sex. That's it. This place is cooked.
Give up control of their bodies and or minds for the majority of the days of the week, across the majority of their adult lives. Now let's dive into some more numbers in terms of how all of this stuff continues to break down. So for the
you working so much in this society, right? That you don't even have a proper social. At the end of the day, mankind, we're social creatures. We're supposed to socialize with our family. Bro, this society is so cooked here that you could literally live in a household with you, your woman, and you only interact for about an hour a day. You know what I'm saying? Because you got to do bare work, man. Like, you got to work, your woman's working, your kids have got to go to school. When they're not in school, they're going to have to go to work. Like, it's insane. And it's like, when you really break it down, that's why everyone's just an individual now, because your family's really at work. It's all weird. The whole thing is just weird and messed up, man. Goodness gracious, man.
The elite class to actually be fully economically independent, the way I classify that is they have a net worth that is in excess of a lifetime annual subsistence. Okay, so let's break that down. So a lifetime annual subsistence, the way I calculate that is, we'll flip to the next page quickly here, and then we'll go back. I calculate basically based off MIT's living wage calculator. As a general rule of thumb, you could say a minimum annual subsistence would be about $30,000. Obviously, there's a huge fluctuation depending on like where you live and stuff like that. But I think we can, so that we don't have to overcomplicate things too much, if we're just looking for a very, very general minimum annual subsistence income for one single person, probably about $30,000. Remember, this is minimum, right? It's minimum. This would just get you the bare necessities. So that's $30,000. Now, a lifetime annual subsistence, what we're doing is we're essentially applying this formula here, which is like a cost of freedom calculation. It's the exact same calculation you would do to calculate your own retirement, because retirement calculations are just a cost of freedom calculation, right? And it's like, all you're calculating is how much money would I need to never work again, right? Most people just calculate that super far out into the future in their 50s or 60s, because they're like, that's probably when I'll have enough money to never work again. That's all retirement is, right? That's it. It's just, when will I have enough money to never work again? So it's a cost of freedom calculation. We're just calculating that as if the person were going to be free today, right? And so that works out to be a bit.
The thing is so mad, yeah, that I know for a fact, like the job I work in, yeah, them man are earning good money, right? And you go into the to the cafeteria, and these men are in there talking about their pensions, and they're doing AVCs, so they're putting extra money down for their pension, right? And I kid you not, most of these men, by the time they retire, them man are dead. Like some of these men don't make it to the actual retirement party. Some men are dead before the retirement party. Some men are dead 1 year, 2 years after retirement. Like it's crazy. It's a mad thing out here. Trust me.
About $3 million when we consider things like 2% inflation, and if a person had a life expectancy of around 80 years, and they were like a postgraduate student who was just starting work after 22, basically. So all of that is to say, the elite class is fully economically independent because they definitely exceed that $3 million threshold for a lifetime annual subsistence, right? In other words, they have enough money that they would never have to work another day in their life, according to meeting the bare necessities at least. And of course, the elite class has much more than that. And the other unique characteristic that we just discussed about the elite class is they also have the power to command other human beings. And specifically, they actually have the power to command at least 1,000 other human beings, and that's because they control the equivalent access to resources of 1,000 human beings' wages, right? Because if we think, okay, a minimum annual subsistence is about $30,000, well, people in the elite class control over 1,000 times $30,000, which means that they could provide a living for at least 1,000 individuals in that sense. So they control access to the equivalent resources for them, right? And that's typically the way that actually breaks down, is just that they end up employing thousands of individuals, right? They give jobs to thousands of individuals. So they have the power to command others. Now in the elite class, they also have a net worth in excess of a lifetime annual subsistence, right? So they have a net worth in excess of $3 million, so they're fully independent, but they do not have the power to command other human beings in the same way the elite class does, because they do not have a net worth that is in excess of 1,000 times the annual subsistence of others. They do not have a net worth in excess of $30 million, right? And then finally, we have the working class, which is, of course, dependent, because they do not have a net worth that is in excess of a lifetime annual subsistence for the most part, and they absolutely do not have the power to command 1,000 other human beings. So they're dependent, which means they can't even command themselves, so they definitely can't command other people. And so now you can kind of see how this breaks down, right? It's like the elite class are fully independent and they can control other people. The middle class is fully independent, meaning they've basically escaped the working class. That's what the middle class is composed of. It's like the escapees from the working class. But they're also not quite powerful enough to be serious players in the domain of like controlling people, right? They probably don't employ if they have businesses or whatever, they probably don't employ huge amounts of people. And so basically what this breaks down to is the fact that I'm not going to make a moral judgment necessarily on whether or not the social pyramid should look like this, right? I'm merely like I'm not going to be making any prescriptive statements about it. I'm just telling you how it actually functions, right? This is more of in the sense of realism. This is just actually the way it works.
Yeah, but the Lord makes a moral judgment on it. In James, the Lord cursed them out. Let's get that. Sorry, James 5. James 5. This man are greedy and demonic. Right, James 5:1, it says, "Go to now, ye rich men." Right, that's talking about that 0.1%. Weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, right? Because the wealth that these elites have accumulated to themselves is through fraud, through lies, deception, through murder, all right, through unjust weights and balances, right? The manipulation of the government and the monetary system, right? It's completely corrupt. All right. In fact, there's another scripture. What is going on with this thing? This flipping, it's acting so crazy. Right, Micah 6:10. It says, Are there yet the treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked, and the scant measure that is abominable? Right? Shall I count them pure with the wicked balances and with the bag of deceitful weights? Because they make it where this money printing and this inflation works against the majority of people, but works in their favor. because they're the ones that print the money and get to use it first. So they don't get affected by inflation the same. But inflation affects us more than anyone else because why? Our disposable income is small. So inflation just eats away at us. All right. People, they're the devil, man. Oh, yeah. Why is it doing that? Flipping on, man. Yeah, your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasure together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud. Right? Their whole system is a system of fraud. Right? The government redistributes wealth to the elites. This is a fact. And what they do is they sit there and they get up on the news and they try and make you think that the people on welfare, on EBT and all these things, that they're the ones that's gaming the system. And no, it's not. Those are the poor. The ones who are gaming the system is the people that own and control these corporations and the government, and they're making money on both sides of it. Because when they give those people the EBT money, those people go to Walmart and give their money to the corporations. And a lot of these people work for these same corporations and still have to be on EBT. Right? They don't talk about corporate welfare. They don't talk about the CARES Act, which was just giving these people money hand over fist. They don't talk about how they take the money, the research from the universities, give it to these private companies, and then these private individuals get rich off technology that was already created in the public space via the universities, which is funded by taxpayer money. So the whole taxpayer system is ultimately still a system that's redistributing money into the hands of the elite while they build their new world order system, right? When they have all these, the military industrial complex, most of that money that's going into the military industrial complex isn't going to the average American. It's going to the top. And that's why the rich is getting richer and the poor is getting poorer. And the gap between the rich and the poor grows every day. Like the billionaires' wealth in the last, what, couple years? Did you double in wealth? No. All right. So it's all fraud. This whole system is a fraudulent system straight off the bat, because it's not based on sound biblical principles like just weights and measures, like the laws concerning land ownership, how to deal with a hired servant, how to deal with a slave, all these different things, how to deal with usury. How the hell are you charging a man 39.9%? How are you charging a man 2,300% on a payday loan? This is crazy. How are they allowed to do this stuff? These payday loans is diabolical, man. Right? Even the issuance of credit. Like, how come you're not allowed to just print money out of thin air, but these men can? It's crazy. All right? Which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth, the armies. Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth, and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in the day of slaughter. Ye have condemned and killed the just, right? And he doth not resist you, right? These men have been doing murders and killing people and doing what they want to do in the earth, man. And that time is gonna come to an end real soon. So yeah, we do make a moral judgment against this system.
And so all of this to say is basically that ever since we adopted agriculture, essentially you've had to force at least 90% of the population into labor. And the way you've had to force them into labor is by making them economically dependent, right? You had to force them to do it. That's because we needed huge amounts of bodies. First to work the fields, then to work the factories, and now to continue to work in information technology, as well as the fields and the factories, right? And so basically what you have is, when you study history, you realize that history has actually been composed of various stages that have these core labor units associated with it. So in the human age, which is basically in my chronology of history, I call the human age basically the period that existed before agriculture. And I'm not going to get into why I call that in this particular video. We'll talk about it another time. But basically, this was the age that you had, essentially everyone was hunter-gatherers, right? And as hunter-gatherers, we actually had the opposite hierarchy. We had an upside-down triangle hierarchy. That's because it was a reverse dominance hierarchy. And a reverse dominance hierarchy is basically just the idea that to now have a very, very small group of people who are the dominators and they dominate everyone else. So you have a normal dominance hierarchy now, right? And once we switched to a normal dominance hierarchy and made the vast majority of people part of this dependent working class, you essentially in the agricultural age, you had slaves filling a huge amount of that role. You had serfs filling a huge amount of that role. You had peasants filling a huge amount of that role. What's funny is when you look, like when we typically think about history, it's like, we might talk about like kings and queens and all these great figures and stuff like that, like when we study history, but we don't typically think about that everyone was essentially like a peasant, right? Like the vast, vast majority of people were just farming peasants. We don't talk about them. Their stories aren't really written, but if you and I live...
Yeah, but not in the Israelite society. According to our society, the vast amount of Israelites weren't peasants because all Israelites were part of a family that owned land. That's that feudal system, which was in Europe and other places, is not ingrained in the Bible, right? The Bible isn't about feudalism, and that doesn't mean that slavery doesn't exist in the Bible. But the idea that you can have a nation and 90% of the people in that nation are peasants, that's not the biblical economy.
X number of years ago, 9.9 times out of 10, it's like that's what we would have been. We typically don't think about that. And we also don't typically think about how nothing's really changed and we might kind of be that today. And I'll continue to progress in that direction, and we'll make the case there. But basically, as you move into the industrial age, then you also have slaves making a huge part of the labor force. It's not obvious that they're part of the labor force because the slavery is happening in periphery zones, right? It's not actually happening in the center. So like, for instance, industrial Britain, it's like, yeah, there might not necessarily been like, a huge slave operation working the factories there, but in the peripheries of society, Africa, South America, or America in general, all the India, all these places, you had obviously imperialism and colonialism having those people contribute to the industrialism as forced laborers, essentially. Now, if you extend this chronology of history out into the future, because it's like, okay, we're actually still in the industrial age in my chronology, we're just at like the very end of it, and you can realize that when you realize most of the bones of our civilization today are still extremely industrial. In the digital age, once we cross the threshold of AI and all that stuff, you're going to have a huge amount of the labor force be composed of divs, right? For sure.
Right, so this is where you're having a situation where Esau now is flipping the script, and this is where the whole depopulation agenda, the fertility rates, this is where it all comes in, because we're supposed to be in a world where people proliferate, they reproduce, but if we're only here to serve Esau as slaves, and Esau doesn't need you to be a slave, then you ultimately don't need to exist. And you can go watch this video yourself. I'm not going to go through the whole video because a lot, but I want to segue on to another point, is that this is why they want to exterminate and kill Jake, because they don't need as many slaves as they used to before, because they got replacements for that now. And that shows you that Esau's the devil, right? The Bible tells you that the earth is the Lord's. Let me get that. So you get into the point where these Edomites are like, well, we don't need these people, so we just get rid of them, and that's wicked as hell. All right. This is Psalms 24:1. It says, the earth is the Lord's, right? This earth belongs to the Most High. Then the Lord determines who receives an inheritance, right? That's Deuteronomy 32:8, right? The Lord divided unto the nations their inheritances. Let's get that. 32. Right? Deuteronomy 32:8 says, when the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, right? So all nations have received an inheritance in the earth. When he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. So the Lord placed man on the earth, right? And man belongs to the Most High. We all belong to the Most High, ultimately. Everyone and everything in this world belongs to the Most High. He's the one, not Esau. So Esau don't get to decide, oh, well, this person, I don't need him to work in my factory anymore, so he could just die. This man is insane. Like, who do you think you are? Right? The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. All right? the world and they that dwell therein. So all the people, right, is a possession of the Heavenly Father, and He puts one over another, right? Psalm 75:7, right, says, "But God is the judge; He putteth down one and setteth up another." But that doesn't mean that you can then just decide because somebody doesn't have no use for you, you could just go and kill them. That's crazy. But that's how Esau thinks about you, Jakes, and they're already setting it up. Right, this is why we told you that scientific racism is coming back in a big way, because they're Esau's trying to push that the one of the major problems with the world is, Jake, you're a problem, you got a low IQ, you're really just criminal, they don't really need you to work in the factories anyway, so you should just be exterminated. There's no help in it because genetically you're predisposed to crime and foolishness. That's what Esau's pushing right now. That's what Twitter's made to do. All right. So it says here, like, it says, do you think giving folks a basic income would reduce crime? Because one of the solutions they're trying to bring about for the fact that most people, most labor is becoming, what's it called, um, obsolete in Esau's industrial system. We're moving out of the industrial age. All right, so you don't need all the wage slaves anymore. So a situation is coming where more and more people are basically being made unemployed, and this is not a new thing. This has been happening for a while. This started a long time ago when automation started coming into factories and robots and machines started replacing people. You need less and less people in the workforce now. Okay, so they're saying, okay, boom, you're gonna have to have what, universal basic income, where the government is just giving people money to survive, basically universal EBT. But it says, do you think giving folks a basic income will reduce crime? Think again. We estimate precise zero effects of basic income on criminal perpetration. Right? So why are they pushing this? Well, let's read here. It says, poverty does not cause crime. Rather, the same underlying traits, low intelligence and low self-control, causes both poverty and crime. So basically what they're setting up is that you Jakes, right, you Israelites, right, this is what's being pushed, and Trump is pushing this, Elon Musk is pushing this. You Jakes are low IQ, you're predisposed to crime, right? Nothing can fix that, right? So really, you should just be exterminated. And if you were exterminated, that would fix the problem in society, in the world. You Jake's just gone because they don't need you. And this is what's really being pushed and set up. Look at this: 35% of Black Americans have an IQ below 80, compared to a fewer than 10% of white Americans. Right? This is why they're pushing all this DEI thing. They're saying, look, man, we don't need these so-called black people to work. They're getting jobs they don't deserve anyway because they're not smart enough. Okay, this is all leading to Ezekiel 21:9 and Twitter. When Elon Musk was given Twitter, because he didn't he's set up, okay, so he set up Twitter to push this agenda against you Jakes. That's all they do on Twitter. Twitter and the algorithm on Twitter is pushing that you Jakes are the problem and you need to be eradicated. This is a fact. And this is going to lead into, when all hell breaks loose, Esau is going to feel justified to put the sword to you Jakes, because they're going to do it based upon science. It's science. Yeah, these people, we tried to bring them into civilization, but they can't be civilized because they're apes. They're low IQ, which is a lie, but Esau operates on lies. That's how the game goes. This is Ezekiel 21:9. It says, Son of man, prophesy and say, thus saith the Lord, say, a sword is sharpened and also furbished. It is sharpened to make a sore slaughter. It is furbished that it may glitter. Should we then make mirth? It contemneth the rod of my son as every tree. and ye have given it to be furbished, that it may be handled. The sword is sharpened, and it is furbished to give it into the hand of the slayer. So there's a flip side to all this information that we're bringing out. When we're showing that, listen, in this society, we're just slaves. The only use that they have for Jake in this society is to be a slave. Like, you have no agency of your own. You're reliant on Esau's system. So what happens when Esau and his system decides that you're obsolete? Well, then you get cut off. And this is what's about to happen. Right? And this is why you see Trump picking on the Somalians, and picking on this person, picking on that person. They're setting the stage that some people are not worth the same as others, that some people are not worthy to be a part of society. And they're using the word deport for now, because deporting them sounds okay. We're just deporting them, when ultimately what it's really going to be is executing them. That's where this whole thing is heading, but they need to season it. But the seasoning is occurring, and that links in. But let me put this link in the chat.
Sure.
So brothers, because I don't want to just let me just put this link. If you want to, it's a good video to finish off because he goes into it heavy. But it links in with the time of Jacob's trouble, because once you understand that in this society Esau don't care about you, Jake was just a means to an end. Jake was just a slave in this man's society, and you understand this man don't love you. When you start looking at what they're actually doing and how they're preparing a world where they don't need the majority of you, and that goes back to the Guidestones, where they said they want to reduce the world's population to 500 million, and that's because they don't need billions of people anymore to live the lifestyle that they want to live. They don't need you. We're not in the industrial age no more. You don't need thousands of people in a factory. You need a couple people and some robots. And so their mentality and their spirit is, we'll just get rid of these people, right? We'll reduce their fertility rates, and we'll kill them off. We'll create diseases. We'll create wars. We'll turn the government against certain populations of them. And when they start exterminating you Jakes, right, they're gonna be clapping. They're gonna say, yeah, get rid of them. It's black fatigue, isn't it? Which is all lies, because Esau does the same stuff and he doesn't get labeled. But this is what it's all about. The propaganda against Jake is real. Jake is not wanted. Jake is the problem. We're no good. We're just DEI. We shouldn't even be here. We don't deserve EBT, and we don't deserve jobs. So what do we deserve then? Where is it that we live? They demonize you if you're on EBT, and they demonize you if you get a job. They say it's DEI. You don't deserve the job. So what is it? What are they telling you? This is why we got to get out of here, man. This is Jeremiah 30:1. It says, the word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, saying, write thee all the words that I have spoken unto thee in a book. For lo, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah, saith the Lord, and I will cause them to return to the land. And this is what it's all about, man. All right? We got to get the hell out of here, man, and from underneath this guy, because this guy's a demon. He's Satan. He's an adversary. He hates us. All of them hate us, the left and the right. They're all preparing for the day that they get to put their guns on you, Jake, and be justified in doing it, according to them. And it's fast approaching. And that's why you're seeing more and more Edomites bug out and start, cursing Jake out. And what happens? People start championing them. People start saying, oh, they're heroes, and it's black fatigue, and they give them money. Because we're getting to that point. What you're going to see now is they're going to start doing situations where Esau's going to start shooting you Jakes. And that Edomite that shoots you Jake is going to be lauded as a hero, because he just took out another bunch of savages. Jake ain't ready for what's coming down the pipeline, man. Because they think Esau's civilized. Esau isn't civilized. Esau is Satan. He's the devil, and he's the most violent and bloodthirsty people there's ever been on the face of the planet Earth. They had 2 world wars. These are not a people of peace, and these are not a people that withhold from blood. It says, and I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. And these are the words that the Lord spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah, and that's both the tribes. So for these the northern kingdomers that think that Esau holds you in higher regard than, no, they don't, and they showed you that you're one of the main targets for this whole campaign, that you're not welcome, right? The ICE that they got running around, which ICE is just the secret police. ICE is just another way of them bringing in the secret police. All right, and we've been telling you that it's not about deporting people. This is just their way of getting it through the door. It's really going to be about exterminating people, disappearing people, and you're not going to know what happened to them. They just disappeared, and people are going to be clapping about it. Yeah, get rid of them, because they want their American dream back. These Edomites want their American dream back, and if it means that you, Jake, gonna have to go to do it, they'll happily do it. For thus saith the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling and fear, and not of peace. Right? Ask ye now. Right? Look up the term re-immigration. All over Europe, these Edomites, man. Ask ye now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. So the time is fast approaching where Esau is going to turn on the wage slaves because he doesn't need them. Unemployment, I don't know if I got time to play this, but they're using this whole AI thing as a smokescreen to cause more unemployment. It's a signal that the system does not want the wage slaves anymore. They're creating a crisis, and the solution to that crisis is going to be mass depopulation and universal basic income. Okay, this is where all this is headed. The MOTB and mass killing and starvation of people being locked out of the system, people losing their citizenship, meaning losing their rights to receive benefits from the system. And they're already pushing that just because you're born in the country, that shouldn't even. Hey, listen, man, it's gonna get dark, and the more hell they put on these Edomites that are in the working classes, the more these working class Edomites are gonna be happy to throw you, Jakes, and everyone else under the bus. And that's what the rise of the far right is. The rise of the far right is all these working class Edomites angry at their situation, looking for someone to blame, and they're ready and willing to throw anyone else under the bus if it means, in their eyes, that they can achieve what the boomers achieved. That's what you're seeing. So they're going to continue to gaslight them. They're going to continue to turn the screws, and these people are going to be justify killing you, Jakes. And I'm telling you straight up, the day's going to come and it's going to, like, go into Chicago and kill them. If we want to make America great again, this is what has to be done. Forget all that woke, forget all that white guilt. These people are low IQ monkeys, and we can't make society work with them alive. This is what World Star Hip Hop was all about. This is what them getting all these rappers and having these rappers doing all this bullshit. This is all about slandering Jake to the point where the world believes that Jake is useless and doesn't deserve to live in society. This is facts. That's what it's all about. It's the slandering of the black woman, the slandering of the black man, and then they got the black man and the black woman fighting each other on the internet. And ultimately, what are people really getting from all this? Yeah, these people don't deserve anything.
For decades, a clear promise defined the aspirations of young adults worldwide. If you went to university, even if you accumulated some debt, you got a ticket to the middle class. That ticket guaranteed a white-collar job and a salary premium over non-graduates. It also paved the way to home ownership. That promise has been broken. The golden ticket turned out to
Yeah,
just...
remember that this goes all the way back to what's it called? You remember Occupy Wall Street? Because this has been happening for a while. All right.
be a coupon for 10% off the student loan.
And so when these Edomites go into the workplace and they see Jake have a job there, or they see Jake with a good job, they're flipping angry, man. They're like, how the hell did this black woman or this Negro got a good job? He don't deserve to be here. He must be DEI. I should have that job. This is what they're doing. They're causing a scarcity, they're causing a squeeze, and these Edomites are bugging out and they're chimping out.
We're witnessing a rare economic shift. A growing economy usually rewards the effort taken to get an education. Yet today, the economy has been expanding while the door for graduate employment has been closing. In May 2024, Oxford Economics reported a statistic that defines this new era. For the first time in 45 years, the unemployment rate for recent graduates in the United States exceeded the national average. Now, while this isn't great, it's by no means a disaster either, as US unemployment, while rising, is still hovering near all-time lows. This inversion is partially a story of supply.
Which the employment they're talking about is skewed because a lot of people are what's known as underemployed. They're working jobs that's not really providing for them. So they're really not employed, they're underemployed. And if you add that to the number, we're cooked.
In 1960, only about 5% of young people in the UK went to university. By 2007, that figure had risen to 43%. The United States saw a similar trajectory, with the share of adults holding a degree jumping from 7.7% in 1960 to nearly 38% in 2023. The degree, which was once a rare signal of elite capability, has become a baseline expectation. As scarcity disappeared, so did the pay premium. It's not just the number of graduates that have been growing either. There's been grade inflation too. In the UK, for example, the proportion of students awarded a first-class degree went from 7% in the mid-90s to 26% today. The problem with grade inflation like this is that if everyone is special, no one is. In September 2025, unemployment amongst 20 to 24-year-olds in the United States hit 9.2%, rising sharply from 7% a year earlier. Broader data from Bloomberg reveals that Americans with four-year degrees now account for more than 25% of all unemployed workers. This ratio has climbed to an all-time high, surpassing even the temporary peak reached during the pandemic layoffs of March 2020. The crisis can be seen in the frantic activity required to just stand still. According to High Flyers research, final year students in the UK now make an average of 21.7 job applications each. This nearly doubles the number of applications made just 2 years ago in 2023. Yet success rates have plummeted to their lowest levels in 3 decades. Only 27% of UK final year students had a job lined up by February 2025, down from 33% 2 years earlier. Graduate job postings have plummeted in key sectors, falling 78% in human resources, 46% in marketing, and 42% in accounting. While this is happening, the supply of graduates keeps rising, with over 465,000 finishing their first degree in the UK last year. John Byrne-Murdoch, the chief data reporter at the
Yeah, so basically what this guy's breaking down is these young people, there ain't no jobs for them like that no more. And then what else he goes into is that the senior level people are getting fired as well. So the whole system is in a crisis. It's changing, and so you're gonna have a whole bunch of disenchanted people, disenchanted young people. And so when you when you tell them it's all Jake's fault, they're ready to jump on it, right? And then they're blaming it on AI. It's not AI because they're not making no money for AI right now. AI is a scapegoat for them to fire people. Let's see if I could play this video.
It is now the end of October. Look at all these open tabs. The job hunt right now, you guys. If you got a job, just keep it, okay?
Amazon recently announced their largest corporate layoff, cutting 14,000 employees, with executives hoping to eliminate 600,000 workers by 2033. When Amazon, the US's second largest employer, starts laying off employees, it gives cover to other CEOs. UPS announced 48,000 layoffs. YouTube is offering its employees voluntary exit packages. Chegg announced it was cutting 45% of its workforce. Target cut roughly 18.
This is all coordinated. This doesn't have to be happening. This is all coordinated because of the crisis they want to create and to get the emotions flowing, for the blood to flow.
100 employees. GM cut roughly 1,700 employees. Meta, Rivian, Ford, the list goes on. And this is just for the month of October. It doesn't even cover the layoffs we've been experiencing throughout the year. But there's one layoff I want to highlight. Paramount. If you watched my previous video, I mentioned how David Ellison, son of tech billionaire Larry Ellison, had purchased Paramount, further growing his media empire. Despite this open letter David sent to Paramount employees after taking over the company, claiming, "You are the heart of this company," Paramount cut 1,000 employees, with that number expected to be 2,000 in coming weeks.
If companies like Google and Amazon and Meta are making billions, why are they laying people off?
Exactly. If they're making all this money and these profits, why are they laying people off? Because it's an agenda. They want the squeeze, right? They want to push people towards breaking point because they want the MOTB, they want crisis, they want blood in the streets, they want a reason to have to depopulate.
Oh, that's easy. Greed. These billionaires don't care about us. They only care about showing growth to Wall Street every 3 months. Remember when property developer Tim Gurner said that unemployment needed to rise 40-50% to put us workers back in our place?
And we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40-50%, in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. There's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them. It's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude. And that.
So there you have it. And you can go check this. This is a good video as well. They're firing everyone and getting rich from it. And like I said, this just shows you that this whole thing, this wage save thing, this slavery thing that they're doing, they don't need the slaves no more. So they're ready to shut up shop, which is all prophecy. All right. So here it is. We're in captivity. And what do you do when you're a slave and your slave owner doesn't need you anymore? And they're not going to free you because they don't believe in freedom. They're going to kill you. Esau don't believe in freedom. And that's why we need Yahweh Shai, man. If I want to get right, Revelations 12:10, it says, "And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Hamashiach. For the accuser of our brethren," which is Esau, Edom is the accuser. His thing is, we are, our people, Israel, we're worthless. We're irredeemable and worthless. That is what is being pushed, right, every day. That we are irredeemable. We're just a bunch of criminals and low IQ criminals, and we're worthless, and we're negative to civilization. He's the accuser of our brethren. When we are redeemable, because we have him as Yahweh Shai, and the Lord will deliver and elect unto salvation and perfection. So fuck Esau. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, right? The sacrifice that Yahweh Shai made, and by the word of their testimony. And they loved not their lives unto death. Therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them, and woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath. And what's going to come with that wrath? Blood. You ain't seen nothing yet. You think this ice thing is, you ain't seen nothing yet. They going to keep whipping up the emotions. They're going to have the bots all over. Like Twitter is one big psychological operation. And every day more and more Edomites are turning over to the idea that you Jakes are the problem and you need to be exterminated. And if you don't think, you don't listen, you need to wake up. Esau is already twisting the minds of his own people to be like, yeah, when we start moving on these Jakes, get down with the get down. Yeah, the devil has come down onto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. So 2026 is coming around the corner. And as these Edomites, man, start feeling more and more pressure, they're gonna start being able to do more and more things towards you, Jake, man, and they're gonna be justified. They're gonna say it's justified, man. All right. So you got to get locked in with the Lord. This system and this kingdom ain't nothing to believe in. It ain't nothing to hold on to. In this system and this kingdom, you are literally just a wage slave. And worse to the fact that you're a wage slave to people who hate you. Right? Esau, Edom, they hate you. They've never loved you. Right? If they can oppress their own people, that is their own people, what do you think they will do to you? Right? And this is for all you Jake out there that you feel like there's hope in this society, or there's hope in this world, or there's hope in Esau. You hope in Bill Gates or Elon Musk or some Edomite out there. There's no Edomites that's on your side. This entire system is just you being a slave. And once they have no use for you, they will just kill you. That is their desire, right? They don't hate blood in that regard. And it's prophecy. So the thing is that now is time to lock in with this with Yahweh Shai, so that you may be preserved from these things that's definitely coming down the pipeline. They are 100% seasoning it and preparing the way for these things to come upon our people, the time of Jacob's trouble. These are facts. Okay. Now I'm gonna lock it off here, but like I said, you can go. You got this video here, which I'll go into the actual details of the true biblical economy, and you could check these videos out here, AI and the death of the career ladder. This is what's happening at the moment, and this is all by design. All right, the world as we know it is in flux. Right, check this video out as well. All right, so with that. We say shalom for all the brothers on the comment board, the brothers that called in and everything, man. Kal halal Yahweh Hashem Yahushai Baharakav Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Honors to you brothers out there in highways and the byways teaching this word in all sincerity and in truth. Shalom.